Chapter 6. Two more at the door. Suitors, Neo said, laughter spilling out of him a little too loud. No one else so much as cracked a smile. Just like that, the sound curled up and died, making the quiet more awkward. "You're joking." The words were sharp, meant to snap sense into the air. Kalen already had his hand on the belt knife hanging by the door. He wasn't joking. Vera muttered a curse that tasted like broken glass and marched to the rack on the wall. She picked a staff thicker than Neo's wrist, looked battle-worn, looked serious. Neo looked from her to Kalen and back, eyes wide. "This is not how courtship is supposed to go." Vera barked a laugh, the sound closer to a snort. "Neither are you." She made it almost sound like affection. Kalen was strapping into his outer vest fast, all hard-edged muscle memory. Neo, still holding a spoon from breakfast, pointed it at him. "You are not fighting people over me before anyone's even eaten." Kalen glanced over his shoulder, eyes dark. "Then I'll do it hungry," and just left. Neo watched Kalen go, didn't even notice when his arm dropped and the spoon sagged with it. "That was deeply unserious," he said. Vera stalked toward the door, staff leaning on her shoulder. Neo scrambled up from the pallet. "I'm coming." She blocked him, holding the staff in one hand like she could stop the sunrise. "No." He threw his hands up. "I am the alleged prize, you know." She leaned into the doorway, one hip cocked. "You are the scent making everyone lose their damn minds." "That feels like you're blaming the victim here," he mumbled. She didn't look back. "It's called weather management." He tried to dart past. She barely moved, one of those half steps that managed to block the entire room. Neo scowled. "How old are you, anyway?" "Old enough to know what can go wrong at a door." Shouts came from outside, male voices, gravel dragged back across knives full of trouble. Neo could just make out. "No mark. Male Omega. Fair challenge." There was Kalen's lower voice too, but it was lost in the shuffle. Neo's stomach flipped. He could feel the nerves surging in his blood, hot and frantic. He shoved at Vara's staff. "Move." She looked down at him, unfazed. "Can you fight?" He shook his head. "Can you outrun wolves?" "Nope." "Can you stop smelling like fresh-baked sugar and bad decisions?" He opened his mouth and then shut it again. "Rude." She didn't budge. There was a thud outside, a thick, heavy sound that sent dust raining from the rafters. Neo winced. Another impact, then raucous laughter. "Is that a good sign?" he asked. Vera shrugged. "Depends who's on the ground." One more crash. This time it dragged more laughter from the crowd. Neo saw his chance and dove past Vara's guard, ignoring her snapping grip on his shirt. He hit the door, wrenched it open, and the morning air punched him in the face. The yard had turned into some kind of makeshift arena. Plain dirt ringed by houses in half the village, clustered around like it was market day. Males balanced on rooftops. Females lounged on porches. Kids hung like barn swallows along fence rails, all wide-eyed and expectant. Center of the ring. Kalen had some guy face down with a knee between his shoulder blades, entirely unimpressed. Another male, big as a bear, stood doubled over, clutching his stomach, wheezing. Neo stopped in his tracks. The bear male was enormous, built like a boulder, ears tufted like he'd been sketched half-finished, and Kalen had just folded him with minimal effort. Kalen looked up, his face all storm cloud the second he spotted Neo. Inside. Neo ignored him and crossed his arms. The wolf male trapped under Kalen's knee, twisted, trying not to eat dirt. "Pretty thing, pick me. I own 3 smokehouses." "What?" Neo blinked. The bear waved a hand from the sidelines, still catching his breath. I have river access. Neo turned to Vara. She just caught up, looking deeply impatient. Why are they announcing their resources like it's a livestock auction? Vera crossed her arms, unimpressed. Because they can't beat Kalen, so now it's bribery. Somehow that made sense, and it was embarrassing on multiple levels. Kalen's claws pressed into the earth right next to the wolf male's throat. Try saying anything else. The wolf wisely shut up. Neo had enough. He strode into the packed ring before anyone could stop him. Gasps, whispered exclamations. Kalen stood so fast his opponent nearly face-planted. Neo! No, Neo snapped, whirling to point at everyone. This is insane. You all see this, right? This is not normal. The crowd stared back at him. A few females brightened with intense interest. One old guy covered a laugh with a forced cough. Neo eyed the bear. You cannot propose to someone using river access. It's an excellent river, the bear offered, as if that explained everything. And you, Neo jabbed at the wolf, cannot give a sales pitch about smokehouses as your opening line. The wolf frowned. They are very profitable. And you, he spun to Kalen and jabbed a finger into his chest, cannot solve everything by flattening people into the dirt. Kalen looked almost bewildered, like he'd just learned the sky was blue for the first time. It's worked until now. The crowd laughed. Neo hated that it was a good point. He opened his mouth. Sudden, twisting pain clutched his gut. The world lurched. Embarrassing, fiery heat washed through his entire body, and a scent burst off him, too sweet, too strong, like sticky sunlit fruit, and every male in the crowd inhaled. Instinct dropped across the yard like a weighted net. Kalen's head snapped to him. Vara swore. The bear muttered, voice turned rough and hungry. Oh. All at once, the laughter cut out. Males stiffened up, eyes narrowing, some primal energy flicking on. What was left of Neo's dignity tried to crawl under a lodge and hide. He bent over, clutching his stomach. Heat rolled through him, pulse after pulse of liquid urgency. He could smell himself, sticky with want, slick running down his thighs. The yard reeled from it. The wolf male swallowed, eyes gone wide. The bear straightened, monster shoulders squared up. 3 guys on the fence started moving toward him without even realizing it. That's when Vara's staff slammed into the dirt, hard. Back! The crack of wood hauled a few of the men to their senses. Not enough. Kalen moved. For a second, he was somewhere else. Then he was right there, in front of Neo, blocking everyone out, claws showing a bristling wall of muscle and murder. His growl rumbled low, carrying straight through Neo's chest bones. Mind a guard, he snarled. Neo noticed the wording, not mine. Mind a guard. The difference dug its claws in. The bear grunted. You don't have a claim mark. Kalen's ears flattened. Challenge it. The bear reconsidered every mistake he'd ever made. Another cramp made Neo cry out without meaning to, a whimper. Kalen turned, eyes blazing, checked Neo over, reading him, worry obvious in every tense line. Vara stalked over and grabbed Neo's wrist. Enough spectacle, she growled. Neo staggered upright. I object to being a spectacle, he protested, voice raw. Vara all but yanked him toward the house. Kalen flanked him, the crowd scrambling out of their way like water before a ship's prow. Nobody wanted to get between Kalen and whatever feeling had grabbed hold. Neo could feel every eye, every intake of breath trailing after them. Wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. They reached the door, but the wolf from the dirt yelled after them, Think about the smokehouses. Kalen turned so slow, the crowd went quiet again. The wolf shrank a measurable inch. Vera shoved Neo through the door. Kalen followed, shut the door, and slammed the bar down. Quiet rolled in with the force of a punch. Neo sagged against the wall, skin burning, breaths coming fast and uneven. Everything felt too tight, too raw. Every sense turned up to 11. Vara started ripping open jars and bundles, hands moving fast. Clothes off. Neo stiffened. No. Fine. Suffrage rest. Kalen hovered by the door, bristling like he'd fight the hinges. Neo pointed at him. You're unreasonably calm for someone who was just playing executioner in the yard. Kalen's voice, rougher this time. I'm not calm. Neo looked closer. There it was. Claws sunken deep into the wooden door frame, white-knuckled. Vera mashed bitter leaves into a bowl, poured in boiling water, shoved it into Neo's hands. Drink. It smelled like bark and regret. What is it? Cooling herbs. He took a sip. It tasted worse than it smelled. Vengeful. This is an attack. Drink, she snapped. He drank because whatever dignity was already on fire anyway. Then heat crashed through him, harder than before. The table kept him on his feet. Kalen almost rushed to his side, caught himself just in time, every line of control drawn tight. Neo read it, annoyance mixing with an almost reluctant gratitude. He hated how some part of him wanted Kalen closer. Vera shot them both a look like civilization had failed just for her. This is now a problem. Neo glared, panting. It was already a problem. She shook her head, then leveled a finger at Kalen. Now he's responding. Neo met Kalen's eyes and wished he hadn't. It showed in how he held himself. Restraint wound around need, jaw clenched, pupils blown gold around the edges. His scent had changed, deeper and hotter. Neo's stomach dropped. He pointed. He should stop that. Kalen's voice went gravelly. I'm trying. Vara barked a laugh, trying badly. Neo sipped more vile brew. Responding how exactly? It sounded bad and felt worse. Vara foraged through more shelves. Your heat scent hit him. Now it's all protective instincts, mating drive territory. He's thinking with the lizard half of his brain. Neo choked on the tea because, yep, that was the same everywhere. Kalen didn't deny it, just watched him like he wanted to devour him and apologize at the same time. The air between them was humming. Another heat flare knocked his knees out. Kalen caught him, hands big and careful on Neo's arms. Neo tried to breathe, not inhale, definitely not notice how the wolf's scent made him ache and want. His fingers curled into Kalen's vest on their own. They both froze, like teenagers caught behind the barn. Neo looked at his hand, then at Kalen, then at Vara. Nobody say anything, he begged. Vara, oh so pleased, said, I wouldn't dream of interfering now. Neo tried to let go. His body refused. Kalen made a softly desperate sound deep in his chest. Neo squeezed his eyes shut. I hate biology. Kalen just steadied him. Didn't cling, didn't cage, just held him upright. That was somehow worse. Vara came over, pinched Neo's chin, inspected him like an angry healer. Pupils blown, sweating, pulse racing. Sit down. Then she smacked Kalen with bundled herbs. And you, sit before you wear grooves in the floor. Kalen actually obeyed, parking hard on the stool by the door. Kept his eyes on Neo, steady and intense. Neo caught his breath, feeling like the third wheel at his own crisis. Do you two rehearse this dynamic? Vara ignored him, handed over another cup. this one even fouler smelling, for the heat. Drink it. Will it taste worse? Impressively so. He drank. It helped. Cooling fingers wound through his gut, made the heat manageable again. He sank to the pallet, clutching the cup. Why is he going off like this? He asked, nodding at Kaylin. Kaylin said, because you're in my den. Neo raised an eyebrow. That's not all. Vera folded her arms smugly. You sleep wrapped in his scent. Wear his clothes. He stomped rivals for you, let you lean on him. Half the village saw it. Neo shut his mouth fast because, put that way, it did seem a little damning. And I want to, Kaylin said quietly. That dropped the air a degree, heavier, deeper. Neo couldn't breathe for a second, heart running wild for a dozen reasons. Someone banged on the door. All three jumped, scattershot nerves snapping tight. Kaylin, someone outside called, voice thick with teasing. The bear brought gifts. Because of course he did. This ridiculous village was not going to let him breathe, or honestly, be bored.